Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Julia Meyer. I'm from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm very excited to be here today and talk about context-aware social matching. But first of all, who here likes coffee? Oh, no. Oh, no. 1 second. It just crashed. Cancel, file, open recent.
You good?
I hope so. Let's go back. No. Oh, okay. It's
just horrible projector.
It's just very dark, but this is a picture of a Starbucks logo. Who here likes coffee? Quick show of hands. Quite a few. Okay. So imagine you're from New York City and you sit in a Starbucks like this, and your phone vibrates to tell you, hey, there's somebody nearby you should meet. You both like Starbucks in New York. Who here would actually go and say hi? Again, quick show of hands. Nobody? Really? Maybe one or two? Okay, but in generally we can agree that this is a really bad idea. This doesn't work, right? Okay, so, but how about other ideas? How about carpooling? Bringing people like drivers and passengers together. Who here ever used a car shared ride? Or was happy to share a ride maybe from the airport to the hotel now this weekend? Okay, quite a few. So we could say this works better. This works. How about romance or casual sex? Anyone here ever used one of those apps to find a date? And you don't have to show your hand now. But we can also say, based on a previous talk, this works much better, right? This is something that is huge now. There's all these apps trying to do this. And they're kind of more or less successful. So based on this, we could say social matching works pretty well when there's a clear single purpose, like finding a date or finding a shared ride. But the idea of matching just for coffee in a Starbucks is a really bad idea. And based on that, a lot of people in the community believe that generalized matching without a clear single purpose is also a really bad idea. So is that just it? Should we leave it like this? We can't do more? This is the question that I want to talk about today. And I wonder if we only do this single purpose matching, aren't there lots of opportunities we miss out on to meet more people that are interesting to us nearby? So for example, I want to tell a personal story. I'm a German PhD student on an American campus. And I always wondered if there are other Germans nearby. I kind of thought there must be, but I never ran into one, or at least not that I know of. So this is kind of a missed opportunity, I believe. And current apps can't help me with that. I kind of wanted an app that could tell me hey, there's somebody nearby you should meet. You're both German. So we got this dilemma here that people in the community think we can't do and we shouldn't do generalized matching. It all has to have this clear purpose. But on the other side, does that mean we're doomed to miss out on all these other opportunities to meet interesting people around us? So I mean, smartphones can do a lot of really smart things nowadays. For example, Google now can tell you, based on your location, your calendar, and the traffic situation, you should leave now to go to your doctor's appointment. Why can we not have smartphones to tell us, hey, there's somebody interesting nearby you should meet? That's not irrelevant or overwhelming, spamming us with notifications. So this is really the research question that guided my work. How can we do opportunistic context-aware social matching? How can we have systems introduce you based on the opportunity arising, based on current situation and interesting, relevant people that are nearby and willing and able to interact? So the overview of the rest of my talk is I'm going to tell a little bit about my theoretical framing, then present findings from a user study, and end up with some design considerations. Okay, theoretical framing. And here, we first have to talk about context. Context is this very overused, sometimes abused term, very loaded, and we don't really even know anymore what it means. And it starts with the definition of context can be anything. The definition goes on, it says context can be anything that is relevant to the interaction between the user and the system. And this shows where the challenge lies, like where the problem is. The problem is really to figure out what's relevant. So let's, instead of context, talk about contextual information, because that's what mobile phones or smartphones collect and understand. And we need to figure out what contextual information that is on the phone is relevant to social matching and is relevant to the interaction between, is relevant for the user. So I believe there's these three fundamental different types of context relevant to social matching. The first one being relational context. What defines the connection? What defines the affinity two people might have? Like, why would they be interested or relevant to each other? The second one being personal context, which is like the individual factors, like a person's state of mind, how busy they are, what mood they're in, affects also if they want to meet and be matched with somebody. And the third one is the social context, where they, like all the external factors, everything that surrounds them that also influences them if they want to be matched or meet someone in their current situation. Okay, so then I went out and did a user study to understand these different types of context better and also understand if we even should do it. Are there opportunities missed to meet others? And the way I did this, I did these contextual street intercept kind of interviews where I talked to 58 people in 9 different locations on my campus, urban college campus in northeastern America, and in the streets of Manhattan. These were like short focused interviews, 15 to 20 minutes, and I mainly focused on like right here, right now, who do you want to meet, or why would you want to meet people, or why not? So let's first talk about the relational context and the relational factors that influence people wanting to meet other people. And I can say here, first of all, everybody had a story to tell me where they felt like they wanted to meet other people. They felt like they missed out on an opportunity. They felt like they want to meet others, but they couldn't, or they didn't know how. And along the lines of my Starbucks example from the very beginning, the problem really is shared attributes are not enough. As one of the participants said, sure, there are a lot of people I have things in common with, but that, which doesn't necessarily mean I want to meet them. We all have stuff in common, but that's not enough to start a friendship. So we really have to go beyond this simple idea of similarity and proximity that most systems use nowadays. And one thing I heard repeatedly again was this idea of contextually rare shared attributes. Like, for example, one participant told me he was very religious and he was member of the Seventh Day Adventist Church. And he said, in my town, my religion is all over. But here on campus, it's a lot rarer. Most of my friends from that religion go to other colleges, so I'd like to meet people from my religion here on campus, where it's rare. So that's similar to the story I told you earlier about me being German on this US campus. So I call this contextual rarity, and I believe systems could pick out these contextually rare attributes and use that for matching people with each other. Another interesting story I heard was from Greg. He was at a party, and he said, I felt like an outsider because I was the only one there who wasn't an artist. But then I found this other guy who also wasn't an artist, and we immediately bonded. So here, it's not necessarily that they had anything in common, but they both were shared contextual rarity. So the contextual rare attribute doesn't necessarily have to be shared. I call that contextual oddity. And I believe systems could pick out outsiders in a group that are different than the general crowd and match them based on being different than everybody else. And then also a very prominent theme was the activity partnering. People told me a lot that they would like to meet other people for activities like salsa or tennis or playing chess. Like one participant said, I'm sure there are a lot of people who do this, like dance salsa around here, but I don't know them. But if I knew somebody also interested, I would go talk to them. So this is not really something the participants like urgently need and would go out and search for it. But if the opportunity arises, if somebody would be nearby also wanting to play chess, I'd be happy to play chess. I just don't know who else around me wants to play chess. Okay, let's move on to personal context. Personal contexts are the individual factors that influence people. And here, what I heard over and over again is this personal engagement, like how busy or how idle people are. And I talked to Angela at Grand Central, who said, I don't think you meet many people here at the train station because everybody is hurrying somewhere. People don't have time to stop and chat with you. So if people are busy hurrying somewhere, they don't want to meet. Compared to that, she also said, meeting people is a lot easier in a waiting room where there's just them waiting for someone. So there's this difference of like how busy you are versus how idle and free you are at the moment, which also influences who you want to meet. And then the social context, all the external factors that also influence if there's a good opportunity to meet people. And one interesting thing I heard here was the idea of sociability of others. A participant told me that at the beginning of the semester, everyone is looking to meet new people with the influx of freshmen. That kind of sets an expectation of meeting others. So I think that we could use other people's openness to meet people and other people's sociability to know if oneself is also interested in meeting others. And then, also very important, the familiarity with the place and the people. Like this quote nicely shows, a grad student told me that he was traveling. So I was at this bar in Hong Kong, and I don't normally go up to others at bars, but I saw he was also watching a soccer match, and I was traveling alone, so I started a conversation. I mean, so when people are traveling to unfamiliar places, when they're alone versus with like other people, they're much more open, much more likely to wanting to meet new people. Okay, and then, of course, we also have to look at the interrelationships because none of these context types are, we cannot look at them individually. They all influence each other. And one thing here was interesting. Tom here said he was when he's studying at the library, when he's like super focused, he doesn't want to meet other people. But then we talked about where he's from. He's from El Salvador, which is something rare at our campus. So he said, while I'm studying at the library, I'd still like to know I had the chance of meeting another person from El Salvador. So here we could see how the rarity might even override the contextual engagement. Even if people are busy, they still might want to meet someone who's really interesting to them. And then, last but not least, I heard this story from Phil. You remember the religious guy who wanted to meet people from his religion? He told me that I don't want to meet people from my religion if I'm at a party, when I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. You know, I'm human and I do stuff. I wouldn't want to be doing something that I'm not supposed to do. So that's something we also have to take into account. If the relational context, the reason for the match, like being religious, might be conflicting with the current activity, like partying, which is not allowed in his religion. Okay. That brings me to my system design considerations. What can we do with all this? So people told me that they miss all these opportunities, and we can definitely say context-aware social matching could solve some problems, but how do we do that? First, we need to find out how could systems identify these valuable encounter opportunities, like these situations where people actually want to meet people. And we have to do this by identifying the opportune relational, personal, and social context. And I have some suggestions on like how we could do this. For the relational context, we could use the concepts I mentioned, like relational contextual rarity, contextual oddity, and the activity partnering. For the personal context, we could look at the personal engagement based on like accelerometer data and activity detection. We could also look at like scheduled upcoming activities or current activities from calendar info. And last but not least, for the social context, we could look at the sociability of people nearby, for example, based on numbers of connections made at this place. And the familiarity of place and people, based on the number of check-ins and the friends nearby. And of course, we also have to look in how they all interrelate, the relational, personal, and social context. Okay, to end my talk, I really want to go back to the beginning real quick and say, I started asking how could we solve this problem of being a German student at NJIT missing out on opportunities. To answer this, we can say, yes, it could work, and we should figure out how we can do this, but we need to build systems that identify these opportune relational, social, and personal contexts. Thank you so much. Questions?
I'm still Victoria Bellotti from Park. And you're not going to believe this, but there's three of us sitting there. We've been wanting to see this paper for months because we were very, very interested in the topic. Okay. And it's because we're actually doing work on contextual matching of people. And we're prototyping a system that does that in the context of peer-to-peer services. And it's kind of interesting because you talked about every other reason except for the possible reason, which would be, you know, this person has something that this other person wants, whether it's a skill or something they want to borrow. And so I just thought I'd mention, you know, that's kind of a good reason to get people together is so that they can transact and share stuff. So that's all I wanted to say. And yeah, we should come to our session on Tuesdays, tomorrow.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was thinking about the need-based matching a little bit too. It's not in this talk, but I've encountered that too. Thank you.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
I'll avoid going to the microphone because probably I can shout it out. One of the things I realized in looking at your, I forget what you call it, your rarity-based matching, is it seems very familiar as the concept of TF-IDF, right?
Yeah.
When you're trying to find things in document corpus.
Yeah.
Did you find that there are analogies in these sort of human-seeking systems? Are there analogies in the information-seeking world that would be useful to you?
I mean, I looked at TF-IDF a lot too because it looks at like importance of terms and it looks at importance of terms in a document versus like a corpus of documents, which I think is very related. I don't know. I think it's different in terms of that people don't really compare to like smaller versus bigger contexts. They don't look at like, okay, how rare is it here versus somewhere else? They just think of like, how rare is it here right now? But yeah, there's interesting things I looked at from the information.
Are you going forward to actually like implement this? Like, are you going to be able to find other Germans in Jersey to play with?
Hopefully. Yeah, sure. You want to connect? Hopefully. I mean, I'm not a